The stars glittered like diamonds against the black void as the human ship Horizon slowed its approach to the blue-green planet of Loria. On the bridge, Captain Eleanor Wright stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her eyes fixed on the view screen. After 2 years of travel, they had finally arrived at the home of the galaxy's most peaceful species. "Entering standard orbit in 5 minutes, Captain," said Lieutenant Ryan Edwards from the pilot's seat. Eleanor nodded. "Alert the diplomatic team. I want everyone ready for first contact procedures." The ship hummed around them as it settled into orbit around Loria. Reports had described the Lorians as a species that had never known war, had no weapons, and lived in perfect harmony with their environment. Many on Earth had doubted such beings could exist. Eleanor herself had been skeptical, but the preliminary scans confirmed it. A thriving civilization with no military installations, no defense systems, nothing that could be classified as a weapon. Jack Morrison joined Eleanor on the bridge. As the chief diplomat for the mission, his friendly face and calm voice had resolved conflicts on 3 different worlds. "Nervous?" Eleanor asked him. Jack smiled. "Meeting a species that doesn't understand the concept of violence? I'm fascinated. Our entire diplomatic playbook is based on managing potential threats. With the Lorians, we might need to create a whole new approach." Dr. Susan Blackwell, the mission's xenobiologist, stepped onto the bridge. Her eyes were bright with excitement. "Captain, the biological readings from the planet are unlike anything I've seen. The Lorians appear to have a neural structure that's highly developed in areas associated with empathy and artistic expression." "And they've really never had a war?" Eleanor asked. "Not even tribal conflicts?" "According to all our research, no," said Daniel Carter, the cultural anthropologist, as he joined them. "Their historical records show a species that evolved without significant predators. They developed cooperation instead of competition as their primary survival strategy." Eleanor turned back to the view screen. The blue-green world hung before them, peaceful and inviting. "Let's hope we don't mess that up," she said quietly. 2 hours later, Eleanor led the first contact team down to the planet's surface in a small shuttle. As they broke through the clouds, they gasped at the sight below. Lorian cities weren't built so much as grown, living architecture that blended seamlessly with the natural landscape. Structures of coral-like material rose in gentle curves, connected by paths that wound through gardens and forests. The shuttle landed in a clearing where a group of Lorians waited. Eleanor took a deep breath before opening the door. This moment would be recorded in human history forever. The Lorians stood tall and graceful, with translucent blue skin that seemed to glow from within. They had no hair, and their large eyes, with pupils like black diamonds, blinked slowly as they watched the humans emerge. Their 4-fingered hands were pressed together in what appeared to be a gesture of welcome. Eleanor stepped forward, hands open at her sides in the universal gesture of peace. "I am Captain Eleanor Wright of Earth. We come with respect and friendship." One of the Lorians moved toward her. This one wore flowing robes of a deeper blue than the others. When the Lorian spoke, it wasn't exactly sound, more like musical, tones combined with patterns of light that rippled across their skin. The translator in Eleanor's ear struggled for a moment, then produced words. "I am Elder Tavali. Your presence brings new colors to our world. Welcome." Jack stepped forward and began the formal greeting protocols, but Eleanor found herself locked in a strange moment of connection with Elder Tavali. The Lorian's eyes held hers, and Eleanor felt as if she were being seen in a way no human had ever seen her. "You carry shadows within your light," Tavali said directly to Eleanor. "Your kind knows pain we cannot understand." Eleanor didn't know how to respond to that. She simply nodded. The humans were invited to a welcome ceremony unlike any they had experienced. The Lorians created music that seemed to flow directly into the mind, bypassing the ears. They shared food that tasted like pure emotion, and showed them art that moved and responded to the viewer's thoughts. During the following days, the human team began learning about Lorian society. They discovered a civilization built entirely on cooperation, with no concept of ownership or hierarchy beyond a council of elders who served as guides rather than rulers. How do you resolve conflicts? Jack asked during a meeting with several elders. The Lorians seemed confused by the question. One finally answered, when perspectives differ, we share understanding until harmony is found. But what if harmony can't be found? Jack pressed. There is always harmony, Elder Tavalli said simply. One must only look deeply enough to find it. On the 5th day, Eleanor and Susan were invited to visit what the Lorians called a memory garden, a place where their history was stored in living plants that could share memories when touched. I wish to show you something, Elder Tavalli said, leading them to a small blue flower. This may help you understand us better. When Eleanor touched the flower, images flooded her mind. The earliest days of Lorian evolution, a species developing in a world without teeth or claws where cooperation meant survival and competition held no advantage. Generation after generation had refined their abilities to communicate, to understand, to create. Violence wasn't absent from their history. It had never existed at all. Later that night, as Eleanor sat alone in her quarters on the horizon, she found herself troubled. The Lorians were remarkable, beautiful in their peaceful existence. But she had seen enough of the galaxy to know that such innocence was rare and vulnerable. Captain, Lieutenant Edwards' voice came over the comm. We're receiving a priority message from Earth Command. Eleanor went to the bridge and opened the secure channel. Admiral Ben Fisher's face appeared on screen. Captain Wright, we have a situation. Long-range scans have detected Vorax fleet movements in your sector. Current trajectory puts them at Loria within 6 months. Eleanor felt cold dread settle in her stomach. The Vorax were ruthless conquerors who had already destroyed 3 civilizations. The Lorians have no defenses, sir, she said. No weapons, no military. They don't even understand the concept. I know, the Admiral said grimly. That's why I'm contacting you. Earth leadership is debating whether to offer protection. In the meantime, your orders are to continue diplomatic relations but prepare for possible evacuation. Do not inform the Lorians of the threat yet. After the transmission ended, Eleanor stood at the view screen, looking down at the peaceful world below. The Lorians had welcomed humans with open arms and complete trust. The thought of the Vorax descending on them made her sick. She made a decision then, one that would change the course of 2 civilizations forever. She would not keep this secret. The Lorians deserved to know what was coming, even if understanding it would forever change who they were. Eleanor stood before the Lorian Council of Elders, her heart heavy with the news she had decided to share despite her orders. The 7 elders sat in a semicircle on cushions of living moss, their blue skin reflecting the soft light that filtered through the crystal dome above. Friends, Eleanor began, I have received information that I must share with you. She took a deep breath. A species known as the Vorax is moving through this sector of space. They have destroyed 3 civilizations already. According to our calculations, they will reach Loria in 6 months. The elders stared at her, their large eyes unblinking. There was no panic, no fear, only confusion. What does it mean to destroy a civilization? Asked Elder Navi, the oldest among them. Eleanor exchanged glances with Jack Morrison, who stood beside her. How could they explain destruction to beings who had never experienced it? The Vorax take resources by force, Jack said carefully. They remove the original inhabitants from planets they want. These inhabitants, they do not survive. You mean they end life? Elder Tavalli asked, the light patterns on her skin changing to a deep purple. Deliberately? Eleanor nodded. Yes, they will come here, and they will try to end all Lorian life. A strange sound filled the chamber, a harmonic hum that seemed to come from all the elders at once. Eleanor realized it was their expression of distress. We have no defense against such beings, Elder Tavalli said finally. We have never needed any. That's why I've come to you, Eleanor said. Earth, humans, we can help you. Back on the horizon, the human team gathered in the conference room. The ship's holographic display showed the projected path of the Vorax fleet. They didn't understand, Susan said, shaking her head. Even after we explained it 3 different ways, They couldn't grasp the concept of deliberate violence. Can you blame them? Daniel replied. They evolved without it. It's like trying to explain color to someone who's been blind from birth. Eleanor paced the room. We need to contact Earth Command again. We need permission to offer protection. Protection isn't enough, Ryan said from his seat by the window. The Vorax fleet is twice the size of anything Earth could send to this sector in 6 months. Then what do you suggest? Eleanor asked, stopping her pacing to look at him. Ryan met her gaze steadily. We teach them to protect themselves. The idea seemed impossible. How could they teach a species that had never known violence to suddenly defend themselves against one of the most aggressive forces in the galaxy? Admiral Fisher's face looked grim on the view screen when Eleanor proposed the plan. You want to what? He asked incredulously. Teach the Lorians to defend themselves, Eleanor repeated. Dr. Blackwell has discovered something about their physiology. Their neural systems are incredibly adaptable. They learn faster than any species we've encountered. Captain Wright, the Admiral said. Even if they could learn, you're talking about fundamentally changing their society. The Prime Directive. With all due respect, sir, the Prime Directive doesn't apply when extinction is the alternative, Eleanor interrupted. The Lorians have a right to survive. After a long silence, the Admiral sighed. I'll take it to the Security Council, but I make no promises. While they waited for Earth's decision, Susan and Daniel spent more time with the Lorians trying to understand their unique biology and psychology. It's remarkable, Susan told Eleanor one evening. Their neural pathways are unlike anything we've seen before. They form new connections at 5 times the rate of humans. It's why they excel at art and empathy. They literally rewire their brains to understand new perspectives. Could that help them understand the concept of defense? Eleanor asked. Susan looked troubled. Theoretically, yes. But introducing the concept of violence to them, it could change them in ways we can't predict. 2 weeks later, Earth Command gave conditional approval for a training program. A military vessel, the Defender, was dispatched with a small team of combat instructors. The real challenge came in explaining the decision to the Lorians. Eleanor, Jack, and Susan sat with Elder Tavalli in a garden overlooking the capital city. We want to teach you skills that might help you survive the Vorax, Eleanor explained. Skills of ending life? Elder Tavalli asked, her voice melodic but her skin patterns showing distress. Skills of protection, Jack corrected gently. To prevent the ending of your lives. Elder Tavalli was silent for a long time, watching the other Lorians move peacefully through the garden below. If we learn these skills, she finally said, we will no longer be who we are. That may be true, Eleanor admitted. But you will be alive. The next day, Elder Tavalli called for a gathering of all Lorians. Through a mental link that all their species shared, every Lorian on the planet joined in a simultaneous communion. The humans could only watch as the blue-skinned beings stood motionless for hours, light patterns flowing across their bodies in complex waves. When it ended, Elder Tavalli came to Eleanor with her decision. We have reached harmony, she said. Some will learn your ways of protection. Others will remain as we have always been. Both paths will be honored. 2 days later, the Defender arrived in orbit. Commander Kyle Winters led a team of 20 combat specialists down to the surface, where 50 Lorian volunteers waited. Elder Tavalli stood at their head. I will learn first, she said to Commander Winters. If these skills will change us, I should be the first to bear that burden. The initial training sessions were difficult to watch. The Lorians physically recoiled from simulations of combat. Their empathic nature made them feel the pain they might cause others, even in training exercises. This isn't working, Commander, Winters told Eleanor after a week of failed attempts. They can't even hold a practice weapon without their skin turning gray with distress. Eleanor watched through the window as Elder Tavalli tried again to complete a simple blocking maneuver. The Elder's movements were graceful but hesitant. We need a different approach, Eleanor said. We're thinking about this wrong. We're trying to make them like us, but they're not us. That night, Eleanor asked Susan to join her in a meeting with Elder Tavalli. Your people value harmony above all else, Eleanor said to the Elder. What if we frame defense not as violence, but as maintaining harmony against those who would destroy it? Elder Tavali's skin rippled with thoughtful patterns. To preserve life is harmony, she said slowly, even against those who do not understand harmony. Yes, Susan agreed, leaning forward. And your neural adaptability, your ability to understand new perspectives, it's your greatest strength. You don't need to think like humans or Vorax. You need to find your own way to protect yourselves. Something changed in Elder Tavali's eyes. I understand, she said. We have been resisting the knowledge because we feared becoming like those who would harm us. But there is another path. The next morning, Elder Tavali gathered the Lorian volunteers. She spoke to them in their own language, a beautiful symphony of tones and light that the humans' translators could only partly capture. We will learn. Her translated words came through, not to destroy but to preserve, not to hate but to protect. We will find the harmony in defense. As Eleanor watched, she couldn't shake the feeling that something momentous had begun, something that would change not just the Lorians but the balance of power throughout the galaxy. The training field gleamed under Loria's twin suns. 1 month had passed since the breakthrough with Elder Tavali, and the changes in the Lorian volunteers were becoming visible. Their normally flowing movements now contained precision. Their soft voices occasionally carried commands. Most striking were the physical changes. Their translucent blue skin had developed a slight density, especially around their arms and chest. Susan took daily readings of the volunteers. She sat now with Eleanor in the Horizons lab, reviewing the data. It's remarkable, Susan said, pointing to the neural scans displayed on the screen. Their brains are physically rewiring. Look at these areas developing here and here. In humans, these would be associated with quick decision-making and threat assessment. Eleanor studied the images. Is it hurting them? That's the strange part, Susan replied. It doesn't seem to be. Their empathic centers remain intact. They're not losing. Their peaceful nature, they're adding to it. Commander Winters entered the lab looking tired but satisfied. You should see what happened today, he said. Elder Tavali completed the full defense course. Not just completed it, mastered it. She moved like, I've never seen anything like did. Down on the planet, the Lorian volunteers gathered each evening to share their experiences through their mental link. This communion allowed those who learned new skills to share them directly with others. Knowledge that would take humans years to master spread through the volunteer group in weeks. Elder Navi and the traditional faction watched these changes with growing concern. One evening, he confronted Elder Tavali as she left the training field. Your skin grows thick, Elder Navi said, his light patterns showing deep sadness. Your movements lose their song. You speak of protection, but I see only loss. Elder Tavali touched her hand to his in the traditional gesture of respect. I still hear the harmony, old friend, but now I also hear the discord that threatens it. And will you respond to discord with more discord? Elder Navi asked. Elder Tavali had no answer. The turning point came 3 months into the training. Commander Winters had set up a simulation, a mock Vorax attack on a Lorian settlement. The human trainers played the roles of attackers while the Lorian volunteers defended holographic civilians. When the simulation began, something unexpected happened. The Lorian defenders moved with perfect coordination, anticipating the attackers' moves before they made them. Their movements flowed like water around obstacles. They disabled the mock attackers without a single wasted motion. How did they do that? Ryan asked, watching from the observation platform with Eleanor. Their empathy, Eleanor realized. They're not shutting it off, they're using it. They can sense intentions. After the exercise, Elder Tavali approached Eleanor. We begin to understand your concept of protection, she said, but we will never embrace your concept of war. What's the difference? Eleanor asked. Protection preserves harmony, Elder Tavali explained. War seeks to impose one's own harmony on others. We will not do this. Eleanor felt a chill. She wasn't sure if Elder Tavali's words were reassuring or concerning. That night, the Horizon received an urgent message from the long-range scout ship Pathfinder. "The Vorax fleet has changed course," Admiral Fisher told Eleanor over the secure channel. "They're moving faster than we predicted. New arrival estimate is 10 weeks, not 6 months. Eleanor's stomach tightened. "We're not ready, sir." "You've got what you've got, Captain," the Admiral said grimly. "The Defender will remain with you, and we're sending 2 more ships, the Guardian and the Shield. But they won't arrive until after the Vorax. You'll be on your own for the first wave." When Eleanor shared this news with the Lorian Council, division erupted among them. "We should evacuate the children and elders," suggested one council member. "Where would they go?" asked another. "Loria is our home. There is nowhere else for us." "We could surrender," offered a third. "Perhaps these Vorax will allow some of us to remain as servants." "They will not," Elder Tavali said firmly. Her voice had changed over the past months, still musical, but with an edge that hadn't existed before. "I have studied their patterns through the human records. The Vorax do not allow life to continue once they claim a world. Then we face extinction," Elder Navi said sadly. "No," Elder Tavali stood. "We face transformation." In the following days, Elder Tavali's volunteer force grew. Hundreds, then thousands of Lorians came forward, willing to learn the ways of protection. The human trainers could no longer personally instruct them all. Instead, they taught advanced techniques to a core group, who then shared the knowledge through the Lorian mental link. Susan continued her studies of the changing Lorians. One afternoon, she burst into Eleanor's quarters, her face pale. "You need to see this," she said, showing Eleanor her datapad. "This is a scan of Elder Tavali from our first week here." The image showed the delicate neural structure of a Lorian brain, with bright areas showing high empathic activity. "And this," Susan continued, "is from yesterday." The new scan showed the same bright empathic centers, but now surrounded by new, neural pathways, dense and complex. "What does it mean?" Eleanor asked. "It means they're not just learning to fight," Susan whispered. "They're evolving. Their neural adaptability is accelerating. They're becoming something new." Eleanor watched the training sessions with growing amazement. The Lorian defenders now moved faster than their human instructors. They developed fighting techniques that used their empathic abilities, moving in perfect unison, anticipating attacks. Before they came, communicating without words. More surprising were the innovations. Lorian engineers, their minds now open to concepts of defense, began designing protective structures and shields unlike anything humans had created. They used their bioengineering skills to grow living armor that moved with the wearer, strengthening and healing as needed. 7 weeks before the Vorax arrival, Eleanor received an unexpected request. Elder Tavali asked to learn not just defense, but strategy. "You wish to learn how to plan battles?" Eleanor asked, surprised. "I wish to learn how to prevent them," Elder Tavali replied. "But if prevention fails, I must know how to win them." Eleanor began teaching Elder Tavali the basics of military strategy, positioning, resource allocation, tactical response. The Elder absorbed the information with disturbing speed. Soon she was creating scenarios that even Commander Winters found challenging to counter. "She thinks differently than we do," Commander Winters told Eleanor after a particularly difficult simulation. "She doesn't think in terms of defeat or victory. She thinks in terms of harmony restoration. It's like watching someone play chess who doesn't care about capturing pieces, only about creating a perfect pattern." As the date of the Vorax arrival grew closer, tension filled the air. The transformed Lorians, now nearly 20,000 strong, prepared for battle. They moved with purpose and coordination that made the human military personnel watch in awe. Elder Navi and the traditionalists, nearly half the Lorian population, maintained their peaceful ways. They prepared in their own manner, through song and communion. 5 weeks before the expected Vorax arrival, Eleanor found Elder Tavali standing alone on a hilltop, watching both groups of her people below. "Are you troubled?" Eleanor asked. "I see 2 paths before us," Elder Tavali said. "In one, we remain true to our peaceful nature and cease to exist. In the other, we survive but become something our ancestors would not recognize." She turned to Eleanor. her eyes reflecting the setting suns. "Did you know this would happen when you taught us to defend ourselves?" Eleanor looked out over the changed world before her. "No," she admitted. "I only knew you deserved the chance to survive." "Survival," Elder Tavali said softly, "may be more complicated than either of us imagined." The alarm blared through the horizon at the early hours of dawn. Eleanor jumped from her bed and rushed to the bridge, still pulling on her uniform jacket. "Report," she demanded as she entered. Ryan's face was grim as he looked up from his station. "Long-range sensors just picked them up, Captain. The Vorax fleet, they're ahead of schedule. Arrival estimate is now 72 hours. Eleanor felt her heart sink. "How many ships?" 37, Ryan said. "Our models predicted 25. Eleanor stared at the tactical display. The Defender floated nearby, a single Earth warship against the coming storm. The Guardian and Shield were still 2 weeks away. "Alert, Commander. Winters," she ordered. "And get me Elder Tavali immediately." Within an hour, human and Lorian leaders gathered in the Horizons conference room. Elder Tavali now moved differently than she had months before. Her steps were measured, precise. Her eyes constantly assessed her surroundings. 3 days, Commander Winters said, looking at the tactical display. "Not enough time for reinforcements." "We should evacuate as many as possible," Jack suggested. "The Horizon and Defender combined could carry perhaps 10,000 Lorians to safety." 10,000 out of millions, Susan said softly. "We will not leave," Elder Tavali said. Her voice was calm but firm. "This is our home. Then we need a plan," Eleanor said. "The Vorax will expect no resistance. They've studied the Lorians. They know their peaceful history." "Yes," Elder Tavali nodded. "Their expectations are our advantage." The next 3 days passed in constant preparation. The transformed Lorians organized into defensive units, each linked mentally with the others. The human crew of the Defender prepared for space combat, knowing they were outnumbered. Elder Navi and the traditionalists gathered in the great gardens, singing songs of harmony and peace that echoed across the city. Some humans found the sound unsettling against the backdrop of war preparation, but Eleanor found it strangely comforting. "They're not giving up," she told Jack as they listened to the distant singing. "They're fighting in their own way." On the final night before the Vorax arrival, Eleanor couldn't sleep. She walked through the Lorian capital, watching as the transformed Defenders made their final preparations. The once purely artistic structures now housed shield generators. The decorative pools had been repurposed into emergency medical centers. She found Elder Tavali in the command center, studying holographic displays of Loria's upper atmosphere. "You should rest," Eleanor said. "Rest will come when harmony is restored," Elder Tavali replied without looking up. Eleanor studied the elder's face. "You've changed." Finally, Elder Tavali turned to her. "We all change. That is life." "Do you regret learning our ways?" Elder Tavali was silent for a moment. "I regret the necessity, not the knowledge. Knowledge itself is never to be feared, only how it is used." The Vorax arrived at dawn. Their ships, angular and black, filled the skies above Loria. The Defender moved to intercept the lead vessels while the Horizon maintained position above the capital city. "They're scanning the surface," Ryan reported from his station. "Standard conquest protocol. They're looking for military installations, defense systems, and finding none built by Lorians," Eleanor said. The humans had carefully designed their defenses to be hidden, giving the Vorax a false sense of security. The first Vorax transmission came an hour after their arrival. A harsh, guttural voice demanded total surrender and the immediate evacuation of all cities. Elder Tavali, standing on the Horizon's bridge, listened to the message with her head tilted slightly. When it ended, she spoke softly to Eleanor. "They expect fear," she said. "They expect surrender or futile resistance. They do not expect us." Eleanor nodded. "Then let's surprise them." The battle began when 5 Vorax landing craft descended toward the capital city. As they entered the lower atmosphere, hidden Lorian weapons activated. Beams of concentrated light, developed by adapting Lorian artistic technology, struck the craft's hulls. 2 exploded immediately. A third spun out of control and crashed into the empty plains outside the city. In orbit, the Defender engaged 3 Vorax warships, drawing them away from the planet. The human vessel was outgunned, but managed to damage one enemy ship before being forced to retreat. The Vorax, suddenly facing unexpected resistance, changed tactics. 6 more ships descended, these heavily armored. They landed outside the city, and armored Vorax soldiers emerged, tall reptilian beings carrying energy weapons. The transformed Lorians waited in defensive positions. When the Vorax approached the city borders, the Defenders moved with a coordination that bordered on supernatural. Their mental link allowed them to function as a single organism with thousands of bodies. Eleanor watched from the horizon as the ground battle unfolded. The Vorax advanced with brute force, firing indiscriminately at buildings and vegetation. The Lorians moved like shadows between structures, striking with precision and then disappearing. "They're incredible," Ryan said, watching the tactical display. "Look at that movement pattern. The Vorax can't predict where they'll strike next." In space, the Vorax commander, frustrated by the unexpected resistance, ordered a full assault. 20 ships moved toward the planet. "They're going to bombard the surface," Commander Winters warned over the comm link. "The Defender can't stop them all." Eleanor turned to Elder Tavali. "We need to retreat. We can't win this fight." But Elder Tavali's eyes had closed. Her skin rippled with light patterns more complex than Eleanor had ever seen. "What is she doing?" Eleanor asked Susan, who stood nearby monitoring Lorian biometrics. "I'm not sure," Susan replied, studying her readings. "But whatever it is, every transformed Lorian on the planet is doing it too." In the gardens, Elder Navi and the traditionalists intensified their singing. The melodies changed, becoming deeper, resonating at frequencies that made the air itself seem to vibrate. And then, something impossible happened. The plants throughout the city, the living buildings, the gardens, even the small flowers that decorated the paths, began to move. Vines snaked upward, forming barriers. Trees bent and shaped themselves into defensive positions. The entire living city transformed into a fortress. In orbit, the Vorax ships suddenly reported instrument failures. Their targeting systems could not lock onto the planet's surface. Their communications became garbled. "The song," Susan whispered, looking at her readings. "The traditionalists' song is creating some kind of interference pattern." And the transformed Lorians are amplifying it, directing it. Eleanor watched in awe as the peaceful and warlike aspects of Lorian society merged into something neither human nor Vorax had ever seen before. The Vorax ground forces found themselves fighting not just the Lorian defenders but the environment itself. Paths closed behind them, trapping them in killing zones. Plant life entangled their weapons. The very air seemed to thicken around them, making movement difficult. After 6 hours of fighting, the Vorax commander ordered a retreat. 5 of their ships had been destroyed or disabled. Their ground forces had been decimated, with over half their soldiers lost. As the Vorax fleet pulled back to regroup, Eleanor looked at Elder Tavali. The Elder's eyes finally opened. "This is only the beginning," Elder Tavali said quietly. "They will return with greater force." "And will be ready," Eleanor replied. Elder Tavali's gaze was distant, seeing something beyond the immediate victory. "Yes," she said, "we will be ready. But when this is over, we will not be the same. For better or worse, humans have shown us a new path." 2 weeks passed after the first battle. The Guardian and Shield arrived and joined the Defender in orbit around Loria. Earth had sent additional supplies and weapons, but everyone knew it wouldn't be enough against the full might of the Vorax. Fleet Eleanor stood in the new war room, deep beneath the Lorian capital. The space had been grown rather than built, living walls that pulsed gently with their own light, floors that adjusted to maintain perfect temperature. Elder Tavali stood beside her, studying the holographic display of nearby space. "Our scouts report the Vorax have gathered 96 ships," Eleanor said. They'll be here in 3 days. Elder Tavali nodded. Her appearance had changed dramatically over the past months. Her once translucent skin had developed a pearlescent quality, harder and more reflective. Her movements were precise, controlled. Yet her eyes remained the same, deep pools of awareness and empathy. We cannot win through defense alone, Elder, Tavali said. We must take the fight to them. Eleanor looked at her in surprise. You want to attack the Vorax fleet? With what? We have only 3 Earth ships. We have more, Elder Tavali replied. She gestured, and the holographic display changed to show a different section of space. There, clustered behind Loria's larger moon, floated dozens of strange vessels. They looked like giant seeds, organic and elegant, their surfaces rippling, with the same pearlescent quality as Elder Tavali's skin. What are those? Eleanor asked in amazement. We call them harmony vessels, Elder Tavali explained. Our engineers adapted our living architecture technology. They grow rather than build, heal rather than repair. Eleanor stared at the display. You created a fleet in 2 weeks. We learn quickly, Elder Tavali said simply. The next day, representatives from all 3 Earth ships gathered on the horizon to hear the Lorian battle plan. Commander Winters looked skeptical as Elder Tavali explained their strategy. You want our ships to engage the Vorax fleet head-on? He asked. That's suicide. Not head-on, Elder Tavali corrected. You will lead them into the 3rd planetary orbit, where our harmony vessels wait. The Vorax expect us to defend. They do not expect us to coordinate. The plan was unlike any human battle strategy. It relied not on firepower, but on perfect timing and coordination, the Lorians' greatest strength. The Earth ships would appear, to flee, drawing the Vorax into a carefully planned trap. On the day of battle, Eleanor stood on the horizon's bridge. The ship had been designated as the command vessel, coordinating between the Earth ships and the Lorian fleet. Elder Navi had joined them, representing the traditionalists who would play their own role in the coming fight. Vorax fleet entering. The system, Ryan announced from his station. 98 ships, they're moving in attack formation. All ships to positions, Eleanor ordered. Execute Phase 1. The Defender, Guardian, and Shield moved to intercept the Vorax vanguard. They engaged briefly, then appeared to retreat in disarray. The Vorax fleet, eager for victory, pursued. Elder Tavali stood with her eyes closed, her skin pulsing with light, patterns. Through her, the mental link connected all Lorians, both the transformed warriors and the traditionalists. Information flowed instantly between all defenders. Phase 2, Eleanor commanded when the Vorax fleet reached the designated position. The Lorian harmony vessels emerged from hiding. They moved unlike any ships Eleanor had seen before, flowing rather than flying, coordinating with each other like cells in a single organism. They surrounded the Vorax fleet in a complex 3-dimensional pattern. Now, Elder Navi, Elder Tavali, said softly. Down on the planet's surface, Elder Navi and the traditionalists began their song. The melody traveled through the mental link to the transformed Lorians aboard the harmony vessels. The ships themselves began to resonate with the music, creating a harmony that interfered with Vorax sensors and communications. Phase 3, Eleanor said. The harmony vessels began to pulse with light and sound. The Vorax ships at the edge of the formation suddenly lost power, their engines disrupted by the harmonic interference. The Earth ships, protected by specially designed shields, re-engaged from the opposite direction. The Vorax commander, finding his fleet suddenly vulnerable, ordered his ships to break formation. It was exactly what the Lorians had anticipated. As the Vorax ships scattered, they broke into smaller groups, each one surrounded by harmony vessels. Eleanor watched the tactical display in awe as the Lorian ships executed their plan with perfect precision. They didn't destroy the Vorax vessels if they could help it. Instead, they disabled engines, weapons, and life support systems with targeted harmonic disruptions. After 4 hours of battle, nearly half the Vorax fleet had been neutralized without being destroyed. The remaining ships attempted to regroup, but the Lorians adjusted their strategy instantly through their mental link, always one step ahead. They're retreating, Ryan announced as the remaining Vorax ships suddenly turned and accelerated away from the planet. We did it! But Elder Tavali's expression remained serious. This is not victory, she said. They will tell others of our strength. They will return with greater numbers. Then we'll be ready for them again, Eleanor said. Elder Tavali turned to her. No, we will not wait for them to return. 2 days later, Eleanor stood with Jack and Susan in the great garden, watching as the Lorians prepared for something unprecedented. 50 Harmony vessels hovered above the city, being loaded with supplies and transformed Lorian warriors. They're going after the Vorax, Jack said in disbelief, hunting them back to their homeland. Not to destroy them, Elder Tavali said, approaching the humans. To transform them as you transformed us. Eleanor studied her friend's face. You think you can change the Vorax? They've destroyed entire civilizations. All beings can change, Elder Tavali replied. We were the most peaceful species in the galaxy. Now we are becoming the most fearsome. But we retain our understanding of harmony. Perhaps that is why this happened, so we could bring harmony to those who have never known it. And if they refuse to change? Eleanor asked. Elder Tavali's eyes hardened slightly. Then they will learn that those who truly understand peace are the most dangerous in war. We know what we protect. We know what we fight for. The next morning, the Lorian fleet departed. Elder Navi and the Traditionalists remained to rebuild and maintain their homeworld. Before leaving, Elder Tavali met with Eleanor one last time on the observation deck of the Horizon. When humans first came to our world, you saw us as innocent, Elder Tavali said. Perhaps we were. Now we have tasted both creation and destruction. We have learned to fight, but we choose how and why we fight. I'm sorry we brought this change to your people, Eleanor said quietly. Elder Tavali smiled, a gesture she had learned from humans. Change is life. Without your arrival, we would have perished, our harmony lost forever. Now we will carry it. To the stars. She placed her hand on Eleanor's shoulder. You taught us to defend ourselves. We will teach others to live in harmony. Eleanor watched from the horizon as the Harmony vessels accelerated away, their pearlescent hulls catching the light of Loria's sun. In teaching the galaxy's most peaceful species how to fight, humanity had created something new. Warriors with the souls of artists, defenders with the hearts of healers, a fearsome force driven not by conquest, but by harmony. She thought about the Vorax, who had never faced an enemy like the Lorians. They had no idea what was coming for them. The most peaceful race in the galaxy had become the most fearsome, and the galaxy would never be the same.